If hirsutism hints at lycanthropy, hypertrichosis screams it. The terrible visions and twisting and writhing of the body could easily be seen as demon possession. Modern medicine has been demonized recently by so nicknamed crunchy moms. But do you think they know that long before vaccines and antibiotics, afflictions that we know now that are diseases were believed to be supernatural in origin? That to cure your epilepsy, you would undergo an exorcism that was just as likely to kill you as to cure you? That having an inherited condition would mean that you ended up as a freak show attraction. Today, we are going to look at several conditions that could have at one time gotten you accused of demon possession, lycanthropy, or even vampirism. Happy Halloween. My name is Shelby, and this is Merrily Morbid, the channel where we explore all things that are at least a little bit dark. From deadly diseases to natural disasters, from true crime to man-made catastrophes. This is the third and final part of our creepy countdown to Halloween. So if it sounds like your kind of thing, come along and let's get morbid. Let's jump right in with the oh-so-terrifying rabies virus. Its history goes back to ancient times where the Greeks and Romans believed that rabies was caused by a spirit called Lyssa, who was the goddess of rage, fury, and rabies. Hence why its scientific name today is Lyssa virus. Rabies has been known to terrify humans going back 4,000 years, making it one of the oldest illnesses known to man, and it is nearly 100% fatal once a person shows symptoms. Less than 20 people have ever survived, and the first person to ever survive was a Wisconsin girl who was bitten by a bat in 2004. To put that in perspective, 60,000 plus people die every year from rabies. So it's basically 99.99999% fatal even today. Once the virus enters the body through a bite or even a scratch, it travels along the nerves until it eventually and invariably reaches and infects the brain. From the point of the bite to the development of symptoms is anywhere from days to weeks. Then, the beginning stages of symptoms can last anywhere from 2 to 10 days. Then, when the real devastation happens, depending on how aggressive the symptoms are, that can last anywhere from just a few days to a month. It is quick and brutal. Most people die from respiratory failure when the brain forgets to tell the body to breathe. But some die from cardiac failure when the brain fails to tell the heart to beat. The primary symptoms begin with fever, headache, weakness, discomfort, and itching at the bite site. After a few days, neurological symptoms can begin to develop. These can include anxiety, irritability, aggression. The person can feel the urge to keep moving and become agitated. They can experience confusion and even hallucinate. A common symptom is hydrophobia. The muscles of the throat can contract uncontrollably, causing a person to be unable to drink no matter how thirsty they are. People can also experience muscle spasms elsewhere too and have seizures, weakness, or paralysis. And rabies can cause an extreme sensitivity to sounds, touch, or bright lights, like sunlight, perhaps. Remind you of anything? Maybe like a vampire? A person bitten by a bat perhaps goes on to develop an aversion to water, perhaps holy water. They become aggressive and try to bite others. Or maybe it reminds you of something else. 99% of human cases of rabies occurs after dog bites. Dogs aren't that different from, say, wolves. But werewolves are just a legend, right? Porphyria was first recognized by Hippocrates, the father of medicine, way back in ancient Greece. Porphyria is a metabolic disorder that affects the body's ability to use porphyrins in making red blood cells. Without the ability to do that, porphyrins build up in the body, causing havoc. Now, there are 8 known types of porphyria with different symptoms and severities. Sufferers of porphyria may experience all sorts of different types of symptoms. Some may have extreme sensitivity to sunlight, which causes painful blistering of the skin. Some may hallucinate or experience delusions. Some have severe pain, which can happen pretty much anywhere in the body. And they can have heart palpitations and rapid heart rate. And very strangely, many even have strangely colored urine that can turn purple in the sunlight. And depending on the type, a person can have symptoms that come and go, which is called an intermittent type. We are going to focus on 2 forms called erythropoietic protoporphyria and porphyria cutanea tardiva, EPP and PCT. Both types cause extreme sensitivity to light. When I was doing the research for this video, the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman kept popping up in my mind, since the 2 children are allergic to the sun. I can only assume that they probably had some form of porphyria, although in the movie it's never outrightly said. Anyway, the type known as EPP causes nerve pain in the skin. They can experience redness, swelling, and lesions. The type known as PCT is noted for blisters, skin fragility, and sometimes, strangely enough, hirsutism. Now, with both types, the extreme sensitivity to light is very easily connected with the modern vampire legend of being killed by direct sunlight exposure. Not to mention that without sunlight exposure, the skin becomes pale, another hallmark of the vampire. But porphyria isn't only associated with vampire legends. Before I mentioned a condition called hirsutism. If you aren't familiar with the term, it is when a person experiences coarse hair growth in areas of the body where hair is usually fine. But generally, it follows male hair growth patterns, even in women. So this means the chest, sideburns, and the lower face. But this hair can appear very fur-like, possibly leading to legends of lycanthropy, known as becoming a werewolf. But side note here, there is an even more extreme condition of hair growth called hypertrichosis. If hirsutism hints at lycanthropy, hypertrichosis screams it. You only have to see a picture of a person afflicted with hypertrichosis to see why. Hypertrichosis is actually known as werewolf syndrome and is genetic. Not much else is really known about it, but both conditions are known to have historically been associated with so-called freak shows, as in The Bearded Lady and Dog Boy. I want to jump in here and ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to make this channel my full-time job so that I can bring you more morbid topics on a regular schedule. I haven't reached 200 subscribers yet, so if you're morbid like me, help me grow my channel by hitting subscribe now. Every subscriber helps. Okay, let's get back to the video. Ergotism, or ergot poisoning, is caused by the ingestion of a type of fungus called Claviceps purpurea, better known as ergot. It mainly grows on grains, but especially on rye and wheat. With the fungus being so small, it is easy to see how ergot could accidentally be mixed into healthy grain during harvesting of fields. The grain is then ground down and turned into flour. But if you've seen my other video on deadly fungi, you will know that many fungi are resilient buggers. The ergot contains toxic compounds that are not destroyed during baking processes, meaning that anything made with the contaminated flour could be deadly. During the medieval ages, it was known by the name St. Anthony's fire for the burning sensations people experienced. A person who had the misfortune of eating ergot-infused foods could expect to have dizziness, headaches, convulsions, psychosis, coma, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, cramping, feeling like their skin is burning, tissue death, extreme pain, and gangrene due to the lack of blood flow, which, without significant modern medical treatment, led to the deaths of countless people through history. Hallucinations and convulsions caused by ergot in the past were often seen as being caused by witchcraft. Yet, at least one account in history included a man claiming that he had the ability to become a wolf. It is now believed that the man was suffering from delusions, possibly caused by ergotism, but could possibly have been diagnosed with clinical lycanthropy today. That's the belief that one is becoming an animal, although it doesn't specifically have to be a wolf. And you, of course, can't discuss hallucinations and convulsions without suspecting demon possession, of course. The terrible visions and twisting and writhing of the body could easily be seen as demon possession. Epilepsy is probably the most familiar condition that I'm talking about in today's video. But what you probably don't know is that the condition is extremely old. Today, we know that epilepsy is a brain condition that occurs when the brain's electrical systems misfire, causing seizures that can manifest in all sorts of ways. But through history, epilepsy has had many different iterations. People have been afflicted with epilepsy all the way back to Mesopotamia. That's 4,000 years ago. The Mesopotamians believed that epilepsy was caused by evil spirits invading a person's body. In ancient Greece, before Hippocrates' time, it was known as the sacred disease and believed to be put on a person by the gods or other spirits. And as Europe fell into the Dark Ages, with the lack of medical knowledge, epilepsy was often blamed on demons. People who have epilepsy may have symptoms or signs that include confusion, staring blankly, stiffening of the body, convulsions, loss of consciousness, anxiety and fear, and even changes in behavior and symptoms of psychosis. Psychosis affects between 6 and 10% of people diagnosed with epilepsy. Psychosis is when a person loses touch with reality and has a hard time distinguishing what is real or not. It can occur up to a week before or after a person experiences a seizure. The person will usually begin to experience insomnia and can later have delusions and strange thoughts and behaviors. Now, historically, it is theorized that it is possible that the oracle at Delphi in ancient Greece may have had seizures from exposure to toxic fumes released from a fault line below the Temple of Apollo, over which it had been built. During the seizures, the oracle would experience visions, but would now possibly be diagnosed as epileptic ictal psychosis, meaning psychosis occurring during a seizure. At least once in the Bible, Jesus blamed a boy's epilepsy on demon possession. And because religious zealots have a hard time reining in their beliefs, for a long time, epilepsy was always believed to have been caused by demon possession. If you want to see how crazy it can go sideways, check out Stephanie Harlow's multi-part deep dive on Annalise Michel. I'll link it below. Essentially, she was put through 67 Catholic exorcisms and eventually died from malnutrition. And that was in 1976. If you want to see more about the dangers of religions, check out my video on how religions kill their own. It is very easy to see how people have mistaken schizophrenia for demon possession, especially since we know so very little about what schizophrenia is. There are theories on what causes it, from the brain mistakenly over-eliminating synapses between neurons, changes in gray matter and white matter in the brain, some sort of immune process, problems with neurotransmitters, or even genetic mutations, or some combination of those. Mainly, we know the signs that a schizophrenic patient exhibits, but not how or why schizophrenia happens. Although the descriptions of schizophrenia go back farther than those of epilepsy, it was only formally diagnosed in 1893 under the name dementia praecox, which meant premature dementia. It was another 7 years before it was called schizophrenia, which came from the Greek words for split mind. It was recognized as being separate from any type of dementia. Schizophrenics can experience delusions, believing that something is real or true when it isn't, such as believing that someone is following them, or something bad is about to happen, or they're famous when they're not. They can experience hallucinations, which can be auditory or visual. They can hear things that aren't really there, or see things that really aren't there. And of course, because life can be a cruel joke, the things that they see and hear can't be pleasant. Most often, they will see things that are creepy or disturbing, hearing voices telling them to do bad things like hurt themselves. They can have a lot of trouble with speaking and being able to put coherent thoughts into words. They may also avoid eye contact and have a lack of emotion, or even stop taking care of themselves altogether. The hardest part of having schizophrenia is that the person with it usually doesn't realize that they are, in fact, mentally ill, and they turn away from help, not realizing how sick they are. It's not hard to see how schizophrenia could easily be confused with demon possession. Even today, you'd be surprised. Here, pause the video and go to Google. Type in schizophrenia demon possession. I'll give you a minute. It's pretty wild. If you aren't motivated to try to find it for yourself, I'll tell you what you'll find. Site after site after site, talking about how to tell if a person is schizophrenic or possessed. And I'm not talking about just Reddit threads. I'm talking about articles attached to names like the Washington Post and the University of Oxford. Yes, the most prestigious college in the world. But maybe someday we can actually discover what causes schizophrenia and put the connections to demon possession to bed once and for all. And that's it for today. The next video will be a re-upload of a video on how all street drugs began as prescribed medications, because I was an idiot and accidentally deleted it. And I will be restarting the video topic polls, so head over to the community tab to vote on an upcoming video. If you like today's video, you're a weirdo, but that's okay, because me too. So hit that like button and show some solidarity. If you want to see more morbid stuff, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, and as always, don't forget to be merry, but stay morbid.
Happy Halloween.